Hello and greetings and welcome back to Geek Legion of Doom. I'm Lisa from the Lisa Love channel, here today to do a review for you for the 2025 movie Dorothea. Now I have names written down because God knows we know my memory's terrible. This is directed by Chad Ferrin, who does seem to do the similar kind of horror movies. He has done Nightcrawler, Pig Killer, Deep One, Scalper, so you know, he's sort of in the horror genre. So in the movie playing Dorothea, we have Susan Priver. Also in the movie, amongst others, is Ginger Lynn, Lou Temple, Cyril O'Reilly and Robert Miano. So this movie is actually about a true crime case, which is one I have been very interested in for many years, hence why Leo kindly offered to let me watch this one. This follows a lady by the name of Dorothea Puente. Just to give you a little bit of background before we talk about the movie, this lady operated mainly in the 80s. She is known as like the boarding house killer. This lady was getting on in years and she decided a money-making escapade for her would be to seek out vulnerable individuals, mainly people that had substance abuse issues, older retired people. She would allow them to stay in her house as a boarding house, and she would take control of their social security checks. And she cited this as being for reasons like their abuse issues. They wouldn't have the money to spend on drugs or alcohol. She would control the money. She would pay the bills. And basically she was keeping their money. She was a con artist, and she went on to kill a number of these individuals. So she was known as the killer landlady, or the killer boarding house lady, or the granny killer. So this is a very, very real case. It's a very serious case. This was a really evil woman. And this movie, Dorothea, is based on that story. So that's a little bit of background. I did know of her before. So the movie does stick very closely to the facts. It does cover what she did. It covers real individuals with their real names, their real cases. So do I think that they did a good job? So, first off, I will say this movie is listed on IMDb as horror, thriller, true crime. It doesn't mention comedy. Now, I feel this movie is quite a dark comedy in places. There are parts played for laughs. It doesn't mention that. And I do feel personally this movie would have been much better if they'd stuck to the facts, if they had not tried to make it funny. This is a very true case. We still have relatives of people who have passed that are still alive. I don't really think this is the kind of thing you should be going at with humour. Now, people may say it wasn't meant to be funny. It most definitely did appear like they were trying to be funny in different places. Dorothea's character talks to the camera quite a lot, which I actually liked that side of things. Sort of we're in on things with her. We're an accomplice almost. She's confiding in us throughout the movie. I did like that, but I did feel that they brought humour into it quite a few times. And personally for me, for this case, I don't think humour was the right avenue to go down. If you're going to mix humour and horror, have it with something fictitious, have it with something that can't be linked back to something that really happened. So, the positives about this movie, as I say, I've told you the rough premise. We do stick to that story of how she got the people into the house, how she ingratiated herself to them like the really concerned, lovely little grandmother, looking after them, making sure they were okay, giving them alcohol when they shouldn't really be drinking because they were alcoholics. She had them doing gardening for her, digging like massive flower beds that she would use to dispose of individuals when she had done away with them. So they do stick pretty closely to the facts in this, which I appreciated, as I was very aware of the case and, you know, the background and what happened and the individual victims. But the humour just really, really turned me off this one. What I will say in a positive sense is there are some effects in this. Practical effects not used a lot, so sparingly used, but where they were used, they were fantastic. There's one quite close to the start of the movie with the very first person that we see that is a victim of Dorothea. And I was like, wow. You do get the feel that this movie is quite low budget when you're watching it, but the effects do not show that whatsoever. The effects are first rate. The blood looks real. some of the things that it showed, I was extremely impressed at the practical effects in this movie. They are well worth watching it for that. The acting, unfortunately, getting onto the cons, on the other hand, perhaps wasn't so strong. I did feel that Susan Priver was okay in places. I liked her acting, in other places not so much. She has worked with this director on a number of other movies, so they obviously have a working relationship. Some of the actors in this were absolutely terrible. I'm not going to name individuals. I also heard the worst Australian accent I have ever had the misfortune to hear in this movie. And weirdly, the actor that actually voiced that Australian accent is probably the most known actor in the movie, and he has actually had a part in The Walking Dead. Now, I'm not saying his acting was bad. He is in it as a very small character for a very small amount of time, but my God, that accent was atrocious. It was terrible. There is some decent acting by some members of the actual boarding house, the victims of Dorothea, but they're in it very, very sparingly. Mainly Dorothea is the main person we follow in this, and as I say, she blew kind of hot and cold for me. I thought at best she was okay, and at worst sometimes the acting was very cheesy, the film just had a real feel of being very low budget until we saw certain effects, and they were excellent. I feel that if this movie had have stuck to a serious note, that had have allowed the actors to play things as they happened in a serious way, not added that tongue-in-cheek humour that appeared to be throughout the movie, I do feel it would have been a much better film. The effects really surprised me. I feel the quality of the movie and the acting and the effects are completely different. I feel we're watching a very average, low-budget movie with amazing effects that would stand alongside effects in a lot of the big Hollywood movies. I was very, very impressed with those. Did I enjoy the movie? I just spent the movie time wishing that they were taking it seriously and cringing at a lot of the acting and a lot of the lines of dialogue. As I say, this is a story that is scary, that is shocking. We have this woman who is just evil. She is this twisted, evil, nasty, nasty woman. And I do feel they didn't quite get that across as much as they could have done. They just didn't take the subject matter as seriously as I would have liked to have seen happen. As I say, the other actors were okay. Some were better than others. But to me, the special effects stood strong above everything else in this movie. If I had to score this one out of 10, overall I would come in at about maybe a 4 to a 5 at best, I would say, for this one, which is sad, as this movie's subject matter is a very strong story. It's a very shocking story. What this woman did is very shocking. How she disposed of people was very shocking. And in this, they just seem to cheapen it for a few laughs. Now, it doesn't mention comedy on IMDb at all as part of the genre, but it very much felt that way to me watching it. Perhaps if you have seen it, or if you want to check this out, you can let me know if it's perhaps just myself. But whoever worked on the effects on this movie has got a fantastic future ahead of them, because the work was fantastic. And that's from someone that watches a lot of horror, likes a good practical special effect in movies, and that stood out far and above everything else in this movie. I will say also, now this movie obviously is set in the 80s mainly. It feels very dated. It feels like, now there is a market for this kind of movie, and I am not that market, you may be. If you like movies like Street Trash and Frankenhooker, you may enjoy this. It very much has got that sort of grimy, gritty feel to it, with like silly humour thrown in that is perhaps a little bit in bad taste. But to me, you know, those movies aren't covering a real case. This is covering a real case, real victims, a real evil, sadistic woman. And I just didn't feel it was the place for the kind of humour we had here. So yeah, I will go 5 out of 10 for Dorothea. Have you seen it? Let me know below in the comments if it sounds like something you want to see. If you have seen, are you aware of Dorothea Puente, the killer landlady? Let us know below in the comments your thoughts, and I look forward to speaking to you next time.